Good morning. We will pay attention to detection and correction of errors. Before compiling the financial statements, all the errors in the accounting records must be traced and rectified. Errors can be divided as follows. Omission of transactions, so the transaction was not recorded in the books at all because you received the source documents too late or because someone made a mistake. Errors in the subsidiary journal, so when you record something incorrectly in the subsidiary journal, it is posted incorrectly to the general ledger. Adding mistakes in the subsidiary journal or in the general ledger, so if there's adding mistakes and in the subsidiary journal, you will post this wrong figures to the general ledger, and therefore your amounts in the general ledger is not correct to record in the financial statements, so you have to correct those mistakes. Errors of transfer of transactions, so that is, for instance, when you have amount 289 and you write 298. Transferring to the wrong side of the ledger account. Transfer errors from the subsidiary journals to the general ledger. So it's correct in the subsidiary journal, but you make a mistake when you transfer it to the ledger. Transfer errors from the general ledger to the trial balance. So there's no mistake in the ledger, but when you record the balance in the trial balance, you make a mistake. Principal errors where transactions were transferred to the wrong side of the ledger accounts. Compensating errors where errors cancel each other. That is, for instance, you buy stationery and you record it as packing material. So you put it on the debit side of an account that is correct, but it's on the wrong account. Detection of errors. Most of the errors will be traced only after the trial balance has been completed, because as soon as you see that the trial balance doesn't balance, then you will go back and you will go and look for the mistakes. All the mistakes where you didn't complete a double entry can be traced by the trial balance because the trial balance doesn't balance. Some errors will not be detected in the trial balance because you've debited and credited the account, although both of them were with the wrong amount, or they're in the wrong accounts, or they're on the wrong side of the accounts. The trial balance will balance, but the amount may be transferred to the wrong account. So some mistakes can be detected in the trial balance when you didn't do a double entry for an entry, and some mistakes will not be detected in the trial balance because you made a double error. When the totals of the trial balance differ, the whole process of recording the entries in the subsidiary journals, transfer it to the general ledger, completing the trial balance, everything will have to be verified to see where you made the mistake. This can take quite a long time to do this. The following procedures should be followed. Check if the total of the debtors list agree with the balance of the debtors control account. So that's the first step where you should start, because you know that the total of all your debtors in the debtors ledger must be the same as the debtors control. If they are the same, it's more or less an indication that there was not a mistake in your debtors. Check your creditors list with the balance of your creditors control and see if they're the same. Now, if the list and the control accounts don't balance, that is the first place where you will start looking for mistakes, because then you already know there's a mistake either in the list, in the individual account of the people, or in the control accounts. Add the totals in the trial balance, again to ensure the correctness of the totals so that you didn't make an adding mistake. Ensure that the totals have been transferred correctly to the correct side of the trial balance. So assets and expenses and drawings will have debit balances. Liability, income, and capital will be transferred to the credit side of the trial balance. If all the totals and balances are on the right side of the trial balance and it still doesn't balance, then it means there was a mistake in the general ledger, and you will have to go back to the ledger to find the mistake. Determine the difference between the debit and credit side of the trial balance. So say there's a difference of 400 Rand. Then you can go and look in your accounts, is there anywhere a 400 amount, because then it's easy to see if you did a double entry. If it's not the 400, then you double the amount and you look for an entry of 800, because that means that you recorded it both entries on the debit side or both entries on the credit side. Or you can halve the amount and you might discover the mistake in that way. Ensure that each amount in the trial balance occur with a balance that's applicable to the ledger account, that you didn't transfer the amounts incorrectly from the ledger to the trial balance. Check the balances in the general ledger to ensure that you calculated all these balances correctly. Check the transfers from the subsidiary journals to the ledgers. And if you still don't have the mistake, you will have to check all your subsidiary journals to ensure that each amount has been entered correctly in the subsidiary journal. Correction of errors. When the errors were detected, adjustments must be recorded in the general journal and accordingly transferred to the ledger accounts to correct the mistakes. It is important to correct the mistake before the financial statements are compiled in order to submit the financial statements as a truthful result of the financial position of the entity. So before you complete your adjustments to correct entries and complete entries that was not completed in time, you must first look for any mistakes that were made, and then when your trial balance balances, you will only start doing the adjustments and corrections, and then if the trial balance balances again, you can only start with your financial statements.